Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something that can seem, well, a little chaotic: qualitative analysis. We're going to pull back the curtain and show you how researchers take a massive pile of interviews, notes, and documents and turn it all into a clear, structured, and really insightful story.
All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll get into the mindset, the whole philosophy behind this kind of work. Then, we're going to map out the core process that takes you from that raw data to uncovering powerful themes. After that, we'll look at the big strategic choices you've got to make, and we'll wrap up by looking at the actual tools you'll use to get the job done.
Okay, so before we jump into the how-to, we really need to start with the why. You have to get the philosophy of this stuff because, honestly, it's way more than just following a set of rules. It's a whole way of thinking.
So picture this. You've done all the work, you've collected all this incredibly rich, detailed information, all these different human experiences. But now you're staring at this mountain of text. The million-dollar question is, where do you even begin to find the meaning hidden inside it all? And that's exactly where the analysis kicks in. But it's not some rigid, by-the-numbers process. It's really a creative and, yes, a subjective act. It's all about letting yourself explore different possible explanations to find those deeper meanings in the stories you've collected.
I love how Dr. Philip Adu puts it: qualitative analysis is an art. But it's not just random inspiration. It's an art form that's built on four really important pillars. First off, it's creative. Now, that doesn't mean you're just making things up. Not at all. It means you have to think outside the box. You consider all these different possibilities and then figure out which one best explains the data you actually have sitting in front of you. Second, it's subjective. And listen, that is not a dirty word here. It just means that you, the researcher, are the main tool for analysis. You're the one bringing your understanding to the table to interpret what people have shared with you.
So to keep that subjectivity in check, the whole process has to be transparent. Because a lot of this thinking happens behind the scenes, you have to be able to show anyone who asks the exact steps and decisions you made to get to your conclusions. Think of it like showing your work in math class. No secret formulas.
And that transparency is exactly what makes your work credible. When you can lay out your process step by step, people can trust your findings. It makes them believable, and it builds a clear roadmap for anyone else who wants to understand your work. Okay, so now that we've got the philosophy down, let's get our hands dirty. We're going to walk through the basic pathway that takes you from that messy pile of data to some really powerful insights.
This right here is basically the universal roadmap from chaos to clarity. It all starts with your raw data, your interview transcripts, your notes, all of it. The first big step is coding. That's where you read everything carefully and attach little labels or codes to chunks of text that seem important. Then you move on to sorting, which is pretty much what it sounds like. You start grouping similar codes together. This helps you build categories. Think of these as the main buckets for your ideas. And finally, you pull those categories together to find your themes. These are the big, overarching ideas that answer your research question and tell the real story hiding in your data.
So, you've got the basic roadmap, but you still need to decide how you're going to travel. You have to pick an overall strategy, and this is a really key decision you'll make.
At this point, you're basically standing at a fork in the road. On one side, you have research-based strategies. Here, your analysis method is totally locked into a specific academic approach, like grounded theory. On the other side, you've got a generic strategy, which is a lot more flexible and just follows that universal pathway we just talked about.
For example, if you chose the research-based path, you might use something like hermeneutic phenomenology to find deep meaning in texts. Or, if your goal is to build a whole new theory from scratch, you'd use grounded theory, and you have to use its specific coding system. Or maybe you'd use narrative inquiry to analyze the structure of the stories people tell. The big takeaway here is that the approach tells you exactly which method to use. There's no mixing and matching.
Okay, so you've chosen your path. Now it's time to pick your tools. You have to decide how you're actually going to do the work. And that brings us to a super practical question. Are you going to go manual or use software?
You could totally go old school with manual coding, using highlighters, Word docs, or maybe an Excel spreadsheet. This works great for smaller projects, like if you only have a couple of interviews. But if you're dealing with data from 10, 20, or even more people, that's when specialized software like NVivo can be an absolute lifesaver for keeping everything organized.
But here is maybe the most important thing to remember about any of these tools. The software is there to help you organize your data. It does not analyze it for you. It's not going to tell you what a sentence means or which code to use. That creative, intellectual, heavy lifting part of the job, that is still all on you.
So let's wrap this all up. What are the big things to take away from all this? Well, think of qualitative analysis as a kind of structured art form. It's definitely a creative process, but it's backed up by a serious, transparent method. All the choices you make, about your strategy, about your tools, they all serve one ultimate goal: turning raw human stories into credible, believable insights.
And really, at the end of the day, this entire process isn't just about codes and categories. It's about honoring the stories that people have trusted you with, finding those beautiful patterns that connect them, and ultimately, giving those stories a clear and powerful voice.